Here, just ahead of National Agriculture Day, we get the opportunity to visit with the president of the American Farm Bureau Federation, Zippy Duvall. Zippy, this time of year, many of your members go to Washington. They take advantage of the opportunity to lobby. I guess they're not this year, right?
No, they're not, Max. And I was in Washington last week to conduct my board meeting virtually, and really and truly, Washington almost looks like a ghost town where the roads out my window are always full of cars. I'd see one, two, and sometimes even no cars on the road.
What's the climate there now? I mean, I'm asking specifically from a standpoint of farm organizations being able to work with the legislative branch and with the White House. How would you describe it? How would you compare it to years past as you look at it right now, Zippy?
Well, I think it's hard to see the busy work going on because the people aren't moving and shaking and things up. But virtually everybody's still hard at work on the phone and moving back and forth between, communicating back and forth between departments, the Congress, and the White House. So the work's getting done. It's just not as visible as it was when was pre-pandemic.
Someone asked me the other day, how effective do you think farm groups can be now in Washington? Obviously, they have an experience working with Tom Vilsack as Secretary of Agriculture, but there's been quite a shift on Capitol Hill and at the White House. How do you respond to that question?
Well, I think first off, we're never as effective as we are when we can meet them in person. So pandemic does have some effect on that. The second thing is there's out in farmland, our farmers are just a little nervous because they're not sure where this administration is going to go on certain issues that are near and dear to their heart. So I think everybody's just cautiously nervous about it and looking forward to seeing some clarity on especially the issues that mean so much to them.
Taxing matters. That has to be very high on the list right now, one could imagine. This is the problem that rears its ugly head with some degree of regularity and has for decades, the estate tax.
It
Even
is,
now.
our policy is to eliminate the estate tax. We were very pleased when the exemption got raised to the level it is right now, and really makes it possible for 98% of the farmers to be able to survive the estate tax now. So we hope that we can continue to work in a direction to eliminate it. That's what our policy says. That's what the best thing is for continuing to be able to pass on farmers to young people and next generation. We're always concerned about the average age of farmers. We surely don't need a tax burden at the end of our deaths to cause the disasters that come into some families when they have to sell their farm to settle up estate tax. So we'll continue to work on it. It is a real important issue to our farmers.
Some people refer to it as a break for the rich. That's one of these lines that comes up quite frequently. Hey, it allows the rich people to keep their money. And some might point out right now that the agriculture industry has just come out of one of the most profitable years. Net income has been one of the best in years, I guess I should say.
Well, farmers are cash poor and land rich because it takes land to farm. And our value is tied up in land, and it's not tied up in money. But you can't farm without that land, and people need to understand that. And we now see after the pandemic how important agriculture really is, how important farmers are. We saw empty shelves last March. Never seen that before in my lifetime. Hope I never see it again. But we are more known now as a national security issue than ever before.
Is that fresh enough of the minds of lawmakers who are not from farm states so that you will be able to get their ear, not just on these immediate matters, but also in the writing of a farm bill not many months down the road?
I think it's going to have a huge positive effect, Max, because I think that I was just on a hearing in front of the Ag House Committee last week talking about hunger. They understand the hunger that's around our country and the richest country in the world and the breadbasket of the world, and we still have some of our friends and neighbors that are hungry. We've always had a little bit of that, but now because of the pandemic, there's a lot of it, and we've seen lines at food banks, and that we don't want to see that in America. So what brought that about? The pandemic brought it about, a little interruption in the food chain, but it also makes them turn their attention to who's producing food and making sure that that food is there, and us solve the problems that we've seen in the food chain, getting it to the people.
You mentioned the House Ag Committee. How problematic is it for farm interests that we've seen such a shift in the makeup of these key committees that have been so powerful and a shift away from rural areas where the producers, the folks of production agriculture, the farmers and ranchers have more of a direct connection with these lawmakers? How difficult will it be to get legislation through there now?
No, I think it's such a focus on feeding people and keeping agriculture strong to protect our country. I think that we're in a positive place to get some positive things done. It really comes down to whether or not are they willing to work bipartisanly. Can they set their party aside and really work what's right for the American people, rural America, and our food system? And we're the very first link in that food system, so we're the most important link in that food system. But I think with the attention that Chairman Scott has given hunger, climate discussions, talking about what's coming up in the next farm bill, I'm hoping we're going to have more bipartisan work there to be able to find some real solutions to some problems that are facing us.
That bipartisanship has been hard to find in recent months, isn't it?
Well, it has been in recent years, really. But having said that, Max, if we look back over history, agriculture and agriculture committee is the first place that you can find bipartisanship work. I mean, really and truly, normally at the end of the day, they try to find some way to make sure that people get fed and the food is available and taking care of our farmers so that we can produce that food. So if they can't do it in the House Ag Committee, they're surely not going to do it in the other committees.
On some of these matters that really matter, are you trying to get the members ginned up here a little bit to get involved in the lobbying effort to try to reach out to their representatives and their senators to get some support for these things that really matter?
All the time. You know, in a national organization, the biggest challenge we have is to keep our members engaged. Our farmers are very busy, and we're really coming up on a planting season. They'll get even busier. But we've had some alerts going out to our members, asking them to call in about taxes and other issues, and we've had really good response. So our farmers are responding, and they know that they got to have their voice heard, and we got to do it virtually and through social media and any means that we can use to make sure that the Americans around the country understand how important we are, what we need to keep American agriculture in good shape, and to make sure that they press their Congress and senators to support us.
Zippy, when you look over the hierarchy of the things that really matter to Farm Bureau members, those key issues, when you get past the state tax, when you get past the farm bill, what are some of the other things? Waters of the United States, that could rear its ugly head. What are some of the things that really are front and center for you?
Well, the front and center one for me, and it always has been and it has been for decades here at American Farm Bureau, is the challenge that we have in finding the labor we need. It's the biggest limiting factor, and I've said that over and over again. It's the biggest limiting factor that American agriculture has. We do not have enough labor. Americans have decided they don't want to do that work, and the H-2A program does not fit all of agriculture, and it doesn't really work in itself. It's very cumbersome, very expensive, and most small and medium farmers can't participate in it. So we got to have a new guest worker program, and one that fills the needs for year-round workers, that creates a fair wage for the worker and for the farmer, so that he can continue to farm and keep our workers out, to keep the jobs out there for those workers, and to be able to produce the food. And there's a lot of our workers across America that's undocumented, and we need to have some adjustment of status so they can stay here and continue to work in agriculture.
Are you seeing now some folks on both sides of the aisle saying, yeah, we recognize this is a problem, not just in agriculture, but in food service as that industry tries to recover, and so many others?
That's exactly right. And there is discussion on both sides of the aisle. They just can't find something that fixes the problem that they all can agree on. And that's where we're trying to come into place. And let's find the common ground between the two parties. Let's fix these problems and move agriculture on to its fullest potential.
Finally, through the years, you've been able to enlist the support of non-farm members, people who weren't necessarily out on the farm or ranch, but you were able to reach them with the Farm Bureau message because perhaps they purchased insurance through one of the Farm Bureau companies. Is that support still out there?
It is more than ever, really, Max. Last spring we had the opportunity to, well, we heard people across this country talking about, well, a lot of people staying at home, working from home. Are our farmers going to go to work? Are these empty shelves that we're seeing now going to become part of our life? And are we going to have to worry about where we're going to find food for our children? So we heard that call, are we going to still work? And of course, our farmers are going to be out there working. So we started hashtag still farming, and it's been amazing. It's just been absolutely amazing, Max, the response that we have. We've touched over 100 million people. I think it's 104 million people. That's over a third of the population of America. It's touched 90 different countries. We're selling T-shirts that the profits are going to Feeding America and our foundation. That says, support hashtag still farming and support your farmers. It's give us the opportunity to tell the farmer's story, and that those statistics tell us that people are interested in where their food comes from.
Thanks for still farming, Zippy Duvall, and thank you for the visit. We sure appreciate it.
Thank you, Max. I always enjoy visiting with you. Appreciate what you do each and every day for us.
Zippy Duvall, president of the American Farm Bureau Federation.